We take you now back to Los Angeles for a very special interview. Ike Batista, the Brazilian billionaire who has made his fortune in energy, is at the Milken Conference. Stephanie Ruhle is there with him. Stephanie, over to you.
That is right, Deirdre. I have the privilege of sitting here with Ike Batista. Now, Ike, 10th richest man in the world. The goal is to get to #1, but let's talk about your business. Now, just last week, the president of Brazil came to see your port in northern Rio and said you're a special kind of entrepreneur, really a hero to Brazil. What kind of obligation is this for you? At the end of the day, you're a private businessman, but do you also have a moral obligation to the Brazilian people?
I think one of the reasons of our success is that all our projects, they start from the beginning by sharing. See, when you develop billion-dollar projects, new businessmen developing projects should take care of the surrounding environment, because I will affect several communities. So we step up and spend money before we make money in these communities to induce growth, help them. I don't believe in the public sector, be the municipality, to help the city find their natural vocations. So we do it, I have a team of 200 people taking care of that.
But can you be a private businessman and make the right decisions for your companies while also having the Brazilian people to answer to? What if the day comes when you need to fire people, when you need to close down a port? Then what? Okay,
but there's one big thing. We have the privilege to work in the resource arena with very rich assets. Our projects have 80% margins. So if I don't know, I have to share. I'm sorry. And we want to pass this to other Brazilian businessmen, because I'm not the only one that is active in resources in Brazil. But sharing is a big part of the equation and of the success, because President Dilma would not have come there if she would not know that we shared this wealth creation, in the wealth creation process, sharing.
She also talked about the idea of OGX and Petrobras potentially combining forces. Is that something you're looking to do or negotiate with one of your other businesses?
Why shouldn't three, great companies like Vale, Petrobras, and OGX and my group, look at our synergy, complementary many aspects, and create more wealth? It's a win-win for everybody. It's a question of having an open mind to create wealth for the country, train people, and use our synergies. For Brazil, it's brutally good.
But those are three just independent businesses. What about Brazil overall? Last year, just 2.7% in growth. That number standalone just doesn't sound big enough.
We live in a Brazil has gigantic pent-up demand. When we were growing at 7.5%, we started to have inflation pressures. Government had to increase rates to control inflation. They increased the Fed rates from 9% to 12%. At the bottom line to the consumer, it meant an extra 20% interest. Think about it. Mortgages, of course you had a slowing of the economy to control inflation.
So do you think relative to other countries, Brazil is in good shape as an economy?
Peter, you need pent-up demand. We are not leveraged, not indebted, and people need to buy everything from housing. Only 5% of Brazil's GDP are mortgages. So mortgages in Brazil is only 5% of GDP. Think about that. It's probably one of the most unleveraged countries in the world. Banks make 25% on equity in Brazil. They hide profits.
Well, could we talk about commodity companies in Brazil, specifically mining? It's getting more difficult to do their business there. Hard to get licensed. There's a shortage of supply and skilled workers. Could they lose their competitive edge to other countries like Australia right now?
No, I'll give you an example. As you mentioned, Australia, Brazilian iron ores have 0.2% phosphor, which is a contaminant. Australia's 1.2. The world needs Brazilian ore to blend it. So, like good whiskey, you need good blends to do good.
Yes.
So Brazilian iron ore is absolutely necessary for the steel mills, because there's something called value in use. They need to use the right blend for the mills, the Chinese, for instance. 1.2% phosphorus is very high. Brazil is 0.2. just to give an example. So it's quality. It's not only volume, it's quality.
How did you get involved in these other commodities businesses? I mean, you spent 20 years specifically in gold. Why diversify yourself if you have an expertise that's not just working, but it's working in a very big way?
Yeah, when I was younger, I followed gold mines like a mule because the bank.
Like a mule?
Like a mule, yes.
A very smart mule.
Yeah, smart mule, yes, but a mule. Bankers told me, Ike, you have to be a pure play, you know. Gold, maybe silver, considered as a precious metal. And
what kind of bankers who were acting as advisors to you?
No, back then, Bankers Trust, remember, they don't exist anymore.
Yes.
And many others. I don't need to tell the names, but many. I mean, everybody who advised my gold company.
And they said you should just stay in gold and maybe in silver?
Yes, and my board too. So, you know, I was there, okay. Probably they're right. Before I looked at the banks, as that they were on the top of the food chain, you know, and they were dictating the rules. So I said I better follow them because I need a lot of resources for South America, money, to fund my operations. So I depended a lot on them. Today is the opposite. I mean, we show how we want to do it.
So are banks providing any sort of funding, or have you gotten so big you don't need anybody's funding? You are the funding source.
Yeah, no, we are partially the funding source, and we're quoted by all the banks because our projects, we invest in $50 billion in the next by 2020, and with 80% margin businesses. And we have found $1.5 trillion in assets. $1.5 trillion in assets: oil, gas, iron ore, gold, coal. So.
Well, stay with me. Right after the break, we're going to talk more about the conference. Now, Ike, we know you sold just over 5% of a stake in EBX to Mubadala, and you have another $1 billion stake to go. You've recently been in Qatar. We would love to know, who exactly are you selling to and when?
I wanted to meet the Emir of Qatar. So
that's the only reason you went?
Well, it's a nice man.
Who could you be selling the stake to? And why do you want to sell?
No, we just wanted to have maybe an extra stamp by investors because, you know, the market it's funny. Sometimes they demand, we like to have the structure audited. And when somebody like Mubadala comes in, the world knows how deep they go into the auditing process. And I love to be audited. I love transparency. So in a way, it's an extra way to show transparency to what we do.
So for this next stake, would you want to be with a sovereign wealth fund?
Also. Yeah, but it could be industrial groups. Heavy industrial groups, because they see that, you know, Brazil has created this national content rule for many sectors, especially the naval industry. And so everybody who produces heavy equipment are moving their factories to Brazil to fulfill that content into our superport.
Now, do you also want to do this, though, because it monetizes the investment for you? Many of your companies are still developing, and we know you've said 2015 you would like to be the world's richest man, and right now you're a good bit behind Carlos Slim. By selling stakes like this, does this help you build your cash pile and get you closer to that #1 position?
Part of it, absolutely. But see, as I said before, you know, with $1.5 trillion in underlying assets, with 80% margin, just give me the time. Let me work, please.
And do you still think 2015 you could be the world's richest man?
I don't think if it's 2016 it'd be very bad. So.
But why do you need to be #1? You seem very much to be goal-oriented. If you were number 4, 5, 6, or even 82, that's still a massive achievement.
Brazil lost 2 generations of Brazilians to the crisis between 84 and 97. Brazil probably paid $150 billion in extra risk spread. The rating agencies put Brazil at the same level of Nigeria, and today it's better than Germany. So this distortion provoked we lost 2 generations, and I feel I want to help. I want to spend money with hospitals, with the universities, in a big way.
But you could do that if you were number 10 or 11. Why is it you have these goals? When did you start? If I said, Ike, when you were 10 years old, did you have a goal? Was there something you said, I need to achieve?
Yes, I suffered a very heavy asthma.
Asthma?
Asthma, yes. And I couldn't breathe. And so my mother threw me into a cold swimming pool. And so I cured my asthma through discipline. And I saw that you can achieve things by performing. And it's part of my DNA. It has become part of my DNA.
And that's
I'm
when
very
it started
competitive.
for you?
Yes. I think it's one of the roots. And And then when I was 18, or between my 12th and my 18th birthday, I had this quest for independence, financial independence, like most human beings in the world, no?
Now, when you compare the way you do your business and how outspoken you are to other people in your position, you're very public. I mean, you've taken to Twitter, you tweet all the time, you have almost 1 million followers. Why would you be so outspoken? Isn't it a risk of a man of your wealth and stature to put themselves out there so much?
Listen, if you have a message to pass on and you think you can teach the generation of Brazilians to become entrepreneurs also, because we are the really creators of wealth, okay? And Brazil, we're living the Brazilian dream. Copied, Brazilians always aspire to the American dream.
You want Brazilians to have their own American dream?
Yes.
And are you the person who embodies that?
Yes, in a way.
Now, you say on Twitter that you encourage people to send their resumes, to give ideas. Do you actually hire people through Twitter?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Yes. Well,
now
we got the resume. I have in our human resource department 250,000 CVs.
That you got off of Twitter?
No, not all from Twitter, but because of what we represent in Brazil, of what the companies are doing. Because what we are doing is transformational, is efficiency to the maximum, state-of-the-art concepts. So people like it in all these different areas.
Now, we also learned from Twitter you recently met with Warren Buffett and Tim Cook of Apple. What do we make of these meetings?
I think Warren Buffett is a man that, I really enjoyed meeting him. We drank Coca-Cola, a liter and a half Coca-Cola for whatever, the 2 hours. Not diet, huh?
Not
pure.
diet,
no,
pure. So Warren Buffett delivers
thing.
Coca-Cola. What does Eike Batista deliver to Warren Buffett?
No, listen. Meeting people like that, there's always something you learn about concepts and way of thinking. His philanthropy is fascinating. So I like it. It was very pleasant.
Well, I know you learned a lot from Warren Buffett. Our viewers have definitely learned a lot from you today. That's Eike Batista here with me at the Milken Conference. And stay with us throughout the day. We'll have a lot more.
Stephanie, we sure will. Looking forward to it. Stephanie Ruhle there with the 10th richest man in the world, Brazilian billionaire Eike Batista. We do have more.